Hi guys, I hope you're doing really well. My name is Sarah and welcome to What the Horror, the channel where we talk about horror movies old and new. So today we are talking about a spoiler-free review of the newly released The Watchers. The Watchers was written and directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan. She is of course the daughter of renowned horror director M. Night Shyamalan. And I have to say that Ishana definitely has her own style, her own feel. It's definitely not copy and paste from M. Night Shyamalan. She's definitely doing her own thing, and I think that she's done a really good job. The Watchers stars Dakota Fanning, Georgina Campbell, Olwen Fier, and Oliver Finnegan. When 28-year-old artist Mina finds shelter after getting stranded in an expansive, untouched forest in Western Ireland, she unknowingly becomes trapped alongside three strangers that are watched and stalked by mysterious creatures each night. So the film The Watchers is actually based on a book of the same name written by A.M. Shine. I keep wanting to say A.A. Milne, but that's Winnie the Pooh, right? A.M. Shine. A disclaimer that I had not read the book before seeing this film, but having seen the film, I am tempted to read the book now because, as with a lot of novel to film adaptations, some things just don't translate as well, and there are certain parts in this film where I feel like the inner monologue, the inner thoughts of characters would be really important, and so I am really tempted to read the book now. So The Watchers is called The Watchers everywhere, I believe, except in the UK. For some reason I found it so baffling that everywhere I looked, there was some posters saying The Watched and some posters saying The Watchers. I believe it is because there was recently a TV show called The Watcher that was released on Netflix, and believing that The Watchers was too close to that, there was a decision made that in England and in Ireland, they would change the title card and the name of the movie to The Watched, which I feel causes its own confusion within itself. But either way, we're reviewing The Watchers / The Watched. Now, as with a lot of films, I found that going into this was not what I had imagined it would be from the trailer. The trailer actually did really well at not giving everything away. It actually uses things in it from the very opening scene as well. So I think the trailer in itself is quite misleading, which I appreciate, because then we still have nice little surprises. We still have things that are to unfold and we can experience them as, we should. Because when, you do what I do, I go to the theatre a lot or the cinema a lot, and so I'm repeatedly seeing these trailers. It is hard to avoid trailers completely now. So I'm really glad that if I've had to watch this one, it didn't spoil everything. And I would also say that just the feel of the film and the format of the film was different to how the trailer portrayed it as well. I thought that we would be living, if you've seen the image or the trailer, like the house in the woods, I thought we would be in that for a lot longer. I thought that would be a bigger chunk of the time. I also thought that we would spend longer not seeing what was on the outside of that building, but it actually gets to a point where we start seeing more things quite quickly. The pacing for the film, for the most part, was really good, especially the first two acts, and the opening scene itself was wonderful. The opening scene really throws you into the events within the woods, within the forest, and it immediately got me hooked, immediately had me intrigued as to what the film was going to be about. And then it cuts back to a much slower, quieter pace as we build up, getting to know our lead character, played by Dakota Fanning. But then by the third act, to me, the pacing went off a little bit. And I think that's because this is one of those unique horror films where the runtime is less than 2 hours. It is about an hour and 45, I believe, maybe an hour and 42. It is also a standalone film. There is no need for a prequel with this. It doesn't leave it open for a sequel. So you have one standalone film with a shorter or average runtime that it has to fit everything into. It has to give you all the information and wrap everything up within the runtime. And the first two acts are a lot more slower. They're a lot more emphasis on the tense atmosphere. And then by the time you get to the third act, that's where the pace shifts, and you now suddenly have to tell your audience everything. You have to tell them and show them and explain everything to them within this final act. And having spent 2 acts with a much slower pace, this one the final act just felt a little bit rushed. I mean, it feels like it's going quickly, but it also feels like it's rushing everything. It feels like we've had time to take things at a steadier pace and process everything that's going on. And then when you're getting like the important information, it's like, pow, 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 pow. Did you get that? If you didn't, tough, because, roll credits. Now, The Watchers is a horror film, and so I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about the scare factor in the film. And unfortunately, this film doesn't really have a high scare factor. There were never any moments where I felt scared in the film. I believe there are a couple of jump scares, but, that's a little bit different. And I never really not really ever felt threatened by the things that are within the film. And I never really felt as though the characters themselves were in any real danger. For a horror film, I feel like that is a real basic requirement. However, this film has plenty of other strengths that I was okay with it. I was okay to watch this as a horror film that is a little bit more atmospheric and, nicer to look at. But if you really want to be on the edge of your seat and terrified by your horror film, then this is probably not going to be one for you. But it could be a really good sort of gateway entry film. It could be a really good one for a much younger audience. And speaking of audience, this is a horror film that is probably going to be enjoyed much more by a particular audience. This not giving spoilers, but basically the subgenre of this horror film is it's like fantasy, folklore, mythology, legend. And so if you're not really into that type of horror, again, this probably isn't going to be for you. However, if you do enjoy folklore and myths and legends, you probably will love this one. I really, really enjoyed it because considering that the film is filmed and set in Ireland, I think that it just works so well that it really taps into folklore mythology, or, Irish mythology. I mean, I suppose universal mythology. And so it really works well with the setting. I really enjoy that they have an established law that they can work with, but then make their own rules and backstory to within it, which I suppose is a positive of using something like fantasy as your subgenre. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, but I can see how that wouldn't be for everybody. In terms of gore and violence, there really isn't any. I'm just trying to quickly scan back over the film in my head now, but no, there's no gore and violence, no body horror, nothing like that. Like I said, this could be a really good entry horror or one to watch with a younger audience. The cast in this is absolutely fantastic. I have only seen Georgina Campbell in 2 films. I've seen her in Barbarian and now The Watchers, but I have loved her in both of those. She's done another one this year that's just come out. It's like 3 words, something. I'll put a movie poster of it up here, but that has gone straight onto my watch list because I'm just loving everything that she does. And Olwen Fauir, I feel like I'm not pronouncing that right, but she's an Irish actor and she was recently in Tarot. She also played adult Sally Harding. Yeah, Sally Harding. Harding. Sally in the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. She was also in Robert Eggers' The Northman. She's brilliant in this, but I'm really embarrassed to admit this, but I'm so glad I'm not the only one. One of my Letterboxd mutuals said they did the exact same thing, and when they saw the trailer, they thought that Dakota Fanning was actually Micah Monroe, and I thought the exact same thing. I'm a bit embarrassed about that, but again, she does a great job. For me, though, the absolute highlight of this film is the look of it, and you cannot go wrong with setting your film in Ireland. They did actually film there as well. It is set in Galway, which is the west coast, but they actually filmed in Dublin and Wicklow and Galway. Now, I haven't been to Galway, but I have been to Wicklow, and I think I've said it before, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. So you can just imagine just the beautiful, rugged, forests and woodlands and hillscapes of Ireland. But then you've also got these really quaint, beautiful, old style villages with their older buildings. So it's just really, really beautiful. But even going further than that, there is this wonderful contrast in the colour palette that they use. There is this contrast between lots of cool colours and warm colours. So there's the coolness of the forest, like the shadowiness of it, and then there's the warmth of the light that come from the building. But then there's also lots of blues and lots of yellows, really making that contrast. And I'm not really sure if those colours are supposed to naturally go together, but it works so well and just looks so beautiful. There's it's not a spoiler, but there's a bird, there's a parrot in it that is the most vibrant yellow, and just the imagery of that is just so beautiful. And I also really love the image, it's on the movie poster, but the image of the building that's in the forest, because this forest is meant to be, the most vast and ancient one, but then this building's actually quite modern. You have an entire wall that is just windows, so you have this really sharp, angular, modern design of this contrasting with this ancient forest. So yeah, I love a beautiful looking film, and The Watchers is a beautiful looking film. So in terms of my overall thoughts on the films, because there's not really much more I can get into without going into spoiler territory, and I do want to leave this as a spoiler-free review, but my overall thoughts on it are that this is a film that I describe as you can have enjoyment with it on surface level, but it feels like there's also so much more there. It feels like there's so many thematically just ideas and imagery and little messages that are hidden in it, lots of little things that I picked up on. And most of my notes that I made, sorry, I got hair in my mouth. Most of my notes that I made were on, oh look, that's a really smart little bit that I actually can't talk about in my review, but I think I'll probably talk about them for the end of year wrap up, because there were little bits that I just felt like, that's so clever, but such a small, easy little detail. So there's lots of sort of symbolism and imagery that it plays around with in terms of identity, in terms of image, in terms of costumes. But as well as all that, this film, as I said earlier, it gives you everything. It is a complete package. It gives you everything that you need to know. It shows you everything you need to know, and is wrapped up complete and neatly at the end. And so I came out of the film, now this may not make sense, but I came out of the film not knowing how I felt about it or what I thought about it. And I think the best way to explain that is that the third act gave me everything that I needed to know about the film. But the first two acts were so full of little bits that felt like you needed to sit with it or you could unpick them, that it felt like this not contrast, but like conflict of it's a film where everything's done, there's no more to it, that's it, that's your film, everything's sorted and answered, you can leave and move on. But like the first part of it had been set up as, oh, this is a film like you need to rewatch, like Midsommar, how there's just loads of foreshadowing and little images in the background. That's what it felt like. And so I was thinking, is there more that I need to unpick here? Or is it really just as simple as it seems? It just went a little bit too fast in the end, and this will make me sound ridiculous, but it moved faster than how my brain could process everything. So overall, I did really enjoy The Watchers. I think that this is an incredibly strong directorial debut from Ishana. I think I will definitely check out other films that she does. I rated it 3.5 stars and a heart on Letterboxd because it's kind of, well, it's way above average for me, but I did enjoy it. Sure, it's not the most scary horror film, but it is an original horror film. Despite being based on an already written book, it is an original horror that is not a prequel, a requel, a reboot, or a sequel. It's not a franchise. And while I like a lot of franchise horror, I always appreciate one that is a brand new world, brand new characters, and is just doing something a little bit different. So I would highly recommend checking it out. Would I recommend rushing out and seeing it on the big screen? Maybe not, because let's be real, the cost of living crisis and everything, it's a luxury to go to the cinema. So I would say maybe wait for video on demand, but I would say definitely check it out. Well worth a watch. Okay, so that is my review on The Watchers. Let me know down below if you guys have seen it. I haven't actually seen this pop up a lot on YouTube in terms of creators talking about it, so I don't know if it's one that people have seen or are excited to see, but if you have seen it, do let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe put a little spoiler warning if you're going to get into spoiler territory, because it's still a fairly recent release. If you're new here and found me through this episode and you enjoyed the episode, then please do give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can join the What the Horror family. This Sunday's episode is going to be a everything still to come in 2024 with horror releases, so make sure to keep an eye out for that one, because we have so many exciting and incredible films coming. I cannot wait. And if you would like to join this list of names here and get extra content every single week, then there is a link to my Patreon down in the description box below. But in the meantime, thank you as always for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.